Oh, thank God. It's Friday, man. Going on 14 days of straight work here thanks to that bombing campaign. But it's 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. Welcome to Frontline. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the next Homeland Security Secretary.
Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Is that your solution?
Hold it. No, sit down. Sit down.
Yes, if that doesn't get you fired up for who we have protecting the homeland, I don't know what will. Also, the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad is warning that Iranian-backed militants may target hotels frequented by foreign nationals in the Kurdistan region. CENTCOM stating that Iran has attacked 12 different nations, targeting civilians throughout the Middle East, including 7 drones fired at civilians in Bahrain. And the White House dropped this banger today, recreating a meme from Grand Theft Auto wrecking Iran's military.
Here we go again.
Yeah, a lot of people blindly criticizing Trump's ongoing efforts in Iran, though, that have absolutely no idea how foreign policy works. Ironically, the same people who got us into this mess. Let's do this. All right, I told you the other night about this whole effort from the Panama Canal to Venezuela to Iran and even Russian relations all stems around kneecapping China. Trump is like 9 steps ahead of all these people. Oh, China, you don't want to play ball? You want to invade Taiwan? Well, then you can go around the tip of South America. Sorry, Trump's he completely modernized the entire world against China. Xi Jinping, hold my beer. China gets, or actually got, 3 to 5% of its oil from Venezuela. All these things, that's over the period of a year and a half, folks. It's working. In fact, it's working so well that one might actually think that China could take some drastic or horrific steps in the near future, ones that I don't think we're actually prepared for as a nation. I'm going to get to that in a second. But over the last 72 hours, since I first talked about this, China has now downgraded its growth projections for the first time in 35 years. Oil in China is rising faster than anywhere else in the world due to their sinking currency exchange, surging in the last 3 days to over what is the equivalent, as you can see there by those 2 blue lines, $122 a barrel versus the rest of the world, which is much lower, under 100. When they convert their currency to, oh, that's right, now the U.S. dollar. I'll tell you about that in a minute, too. Causing them to halt diesel exports, gas exports, and other things for the foreseeable future, which lowers China's trade revenue even more. They're in a death spiral. Energy to China is their lifeblood because they have been replacing more and more of their workforce with AI and robots, which has created its own problems, specifically causing nearly 20% unemployment among their younger generation, which China was banking on being able to offset due to the productivity from their tech advancements, tech that requires massive amounts of energy to run. Follow me here. China, to keep up with their economic shift, has been producing more electricity than the next 4 countries behind them combined, including us, India, Russia, and Japan. And to do that, they have to import oil, natural gas, and even coal. 70% of what they consume is imported, and they've been doing it on the yuan. But if we, as we just did, shut off the spigot to more than 20% of it out of Iran and Venezuela, and more than 50% of China's oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz right there, that we now have control over, they don't have any options to sustain that needed level of energy. Their Gen Zers don't have the skills to immediately re-enter the workforce. They're already having a liquidity banking crisis. This gives the U.S. the upper hand because China imports their energy and we don't. Yes, there's been a surge in American oil prices too, but this is largely speculation on the disruption of the Strait of Hormuz. But I think this would probably come back down pretty quickly here, but probably not in China. Trump knows this. Why do you think he's out saying that now Iran wants to make a deal?
They're calling, they're saying, how do we make a deal? I said, you're being a little bit late.
Yeah, he's doing that to calm the markets, though. Also reminding the world that we are now energy independent and the Middle East oil conflicts are much less relevant to us than ever before. He's signaling to the traders, by the way, Most of those traders cut their teeth when the oil markets were heavily reliant on the Middle East and we were not a net exporter. At the same time, you also may have noticed Trump's being a lot nicer to Russia. And the left, and of course the rhinos, are spazzing out, proving pretty much how illiterate they are on foreign policy.
There's like a moral blindness in this administration when it comes to Russia. And you see it in the NDS with one line on Russia, one line. A whole page is on Europe and attacking Europe or criticizing Europe, and one sentence on Russia. It just bothers me.
Why? Why, Don? Because Russia wants back in the global trade market after being sanctioned at the yin-yang because of their Ukraine invasion. And to people like Representative Don Bacon over there, who's a Republican, a bit concerning that he was also a senior military officer. First, we don't need Europe. That's why he's criticizing them. Second, the reason Trump is being nicer to Russia is because, and China's freaking out about this, Russia is now willing to start trading on the U.S. dollar again and not in the BRICS currency to join the global market. This would absolutely spell the end of China as we know it. Russia is the last piece of the puzzle to bring China to its knees. And we don't actually have a problem with, well, we shouldn't have a problem with Russian values. They're people. Putin's a Cold War relic. But beyond the neocons and what they want you to believe because they want to keep sending unaccountable money to Ukraine, we should actually have a relationship with Russia. Very similar values amongst the people. And Trump is willing to gamble 30 cents more at a gallon at the pump for like a few weeks to do that. Again, trust the guy. Oil is still remarkably cheaper right now than it was under Joe Biden. But here's the other side that's not entirely public yet. What's China doing right now? They already know they're not in a position to do anything militarily against us. Opponents of the Iran strike are whining that we're depleting our munition reserves. Well, not nearly as much as China's depleted theirs. This attack showed China two things. One, our military is way stronger than they thought. And two, China had put a lot of their air defenses, a lot of their resources and weaponry in Venezuela and Iran, and we took it out in a day. The smokescreen of the military might of China was decimated in the first 20 hours of this campaign. And they're thinking to themselves over there, Mr. Xi Jinping, saying, oh, man, we calculated this one wrong. But, not to scare everybody, take a look at the date here on this. August 2019, China faces economic collapse. What happened right after that? When China was on the verge of breaking due to Trump's tariffs, China unleashed a virus funded in part by American dollars from Anthony Fauci, so they could blame it on us, claimed that millions were dead in their country that weren't, welded doors shut on their people's apartment complexes to stop the run on the Chinese banks, and had their allies like Fauci feed false data to Trump to shut down the government and the economy that helped stall China's demise. And now Trump is wise to it and merciless to end that regime. So if you're annoyed at Trump for the short term, don't be. China's the one that's causing all these problems. But what does China have up their sleeve? Like, their attack probably won't be bio again. We're wise to that. They can't compete militarily. We told you the other night that they're funding protests and hope that that would dissuade public opinion against Trump. How'd that work out?
Bush was at 77%. Obama was at 77%. Look at this. 86% of Republicans approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing at this point. That is higher than either Obama or Bush had within their own party at this point. Trump's magic touch has not seemed to wear off yet when it comes to the Republican base.
So now what? The grid? I mean, China could attack our very vulnerable grid, and it could only take 9 substations to completely debilitate us. And I just got to ask, are you ready? 3 days without power, catastrophic supply chain crisis, and food starts to spoil. Household stockpiles run out in cities in probably less than 5 or 6 days. People get desperate. Law and order deteriorates. 10 days, it's desperation and violence, and deaths start occurring. 15 days, most urban areas are going to be trashed. 50% of the country's population lives there. They're hubs for our financial system. It would all be in chaos and starvation. So, do you have a plan? Host of President's Daily Briefing podcast and former CIA covert operations officer Mike Baker. All right, look, I don't think people have any plan because we've never had a crisis here.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Look, If you imagine, right, when you talk about crisis management, right, and you go to a large corporation, you say, what are your crisis plans, right? Now, maybe they've got something that they did, right? And
Coffee.
It's sitting on a shelf, right? It's got dust on it. Because well, think about the average person, right? And you're absolutely right to point this out because just as an example, our power grid, right? It's a patchwork quilt that was never put together with the purpose of surviving a terrorist attack, right? And certainly not a cyber attack.
It doesn't even survive weather.
Right, it doesn't survive weather. And so you've got three main systems around the country, East, West, and Texas. Right. And again, once that goes down, and you pointed it out, once that goes down, you can't move fuel. You can't move pharmaceuticals. You can't move food supplies. People lose access to cash, right? It is a major problem. But I will tell you this from our experience over the years, the average person doesn't have a plan, right? And if they talk to someone who talks about this, their first thought is, well, you're a prepper. Right, so there's a negative connotation to it. Yeah, so you're not being a prepper. You're being pragmatic, right? Because whether it's a natural disaster, a weather crisis, or whether it is something that's state-sponsored, the problem's still the same. And it isn't that difficult to make a plan, right? And to prepare for something, right? Not the apocalypse, but something.
Yeah. Well, and this was breaking like literally the minutes before when you came and sat down in this chair, that U.S. investigators believe that hackers have infiltrated with the Chinese government. They're responsible for a cyber intrusion on an internal FBI computer network that holds information related to some domestic surveillance. This could be the beginning of what we were just talking about.
Yeah, look, if the average person knew, and I consider myself average, except I'm wearing a cardigan, by the way, and
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring the cardigan back. Is what I'm doing here. Yeah, now it's a step on my part. Me and General Waverly from White Christmas. Anyway, the point being is if people knew how aggressive nation states and others, right, anarchists and just criminal organizations are in testing and probing our infrastructure every day. They wouldn't sleep. And the reason being for a nation state, right, is because they've put together a playbook. They already have it, right? It's on the shelf. They know what the weaknesses are. That's why they're testing all our various infrastructure facilities, whether it's water treatment centers, whether it's power grids, whether it's the way that we move cash, whether it's the way fuel hubs work. And so they know. And that's where the next major conflict will play out, because they want to bring the pain home as quickly as possible.
Yeah, but this is another thing. Like, obviously, our infrastructure is 50 years old, 60 years old in a lot of places. The average person is looking at this, and they don't even understand that China is really a more of a personal concern than a military concern against the country.
It is, yeah. I see what you're saying, and that's actually a very good way to put it. Look, the Chinese regime is what we're talking about. I spend a lot of time talking about this issue around the country, and I always have to point this out because it's the world that we live in. We're not talking about the Chinese people. We're talking about this regime that they live under.
Same with Iran.
Exactly. Same with Iran and other places that are hostile to our values and our beliefs and our national security interests. So, again, if people understood, I think that they would be then quicker to think about, well, what should I do? In simple terms, what should I do to prepare for a problem, right? But it's just not, it's not human nature, it seems, because we're all busy trying to put food on the table. Nobody wants to think that far in advance.
But they're also, a lot of people are very quick to criticize Trump because there's a bomb in front of their face, but they don't realize why.
Right. Well, this is not unexpected. You knew that shortly after this conflict with Iran started, that there would be some element of the political structure that would say, well, oh my God, look at the gas prices.
Yeah.
Well, every administration, speaking of Iran, every administration has kicked that can down the road, right? Everyone has ignored it, thinking, let somebody else deal with it, because I don't have the nerve, I don't have the balls to take this on, right? And
Trump did it.
Trump did it, yeah. And look, it's about time, because every other administration has been putting lipstick on a pig, hoping the problem would go away and land on somebody else's desk.
And it didn't.
And it hasn't, no.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Baker, pleasure. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, man.
All right, let's take you live to Tel Aviv, where our Middle East correspondent Zach Anders is live on the ground. Zach, you just came out of the shelter again because it's still going on. I thought Iran was running out of missiles.
Yeah, and we got an interesting update from the IDF during one of their briefing calls today. I was surprised by what they told us. They say that they've taken, with the Americans, out 60% of the mobile launchers, those TELs, the transportable erector launchers is what they're called. 60% taken out here and leaving about 40% left. They think that number is somewhere above 100. I had been told and been reporting throughout the week that we thought that it was less than that. So a bit surprising there from the IDF on their side. But they do say that the Americans and the Israelis have taken out 80% of the air defense systems over Iran. And that's kind of the tip of the spear when we're talking about this campaign. You got to take out the air defenses and then take out the missile launchers. This is still a multi-front war. We're seeing Azerbaijan roped in, at least 13 countries now involved with this. Azerbaijan taking a drone to their airport yesterday. They say they reserve the right to respond. They're moving forces near the border there. The Pentagon tells us still, despite we're seeing incoming missiles, down 90% from day one of the ballistic missile fire when we had some 300 fired across the region. And now we're looking at, in that 20 minutes ago attack over here in Tel Aviv, we saw about 3 missiles.
Wow.
Carl?
Oh, so it's only, yeah, I mean, that's far less than it was. All right, Zach, stay safe over there. All right, coming up, recently declassified documents causing some serious concerns over Lyme's disease and biowarfare and whether or not the U.S. military actually might have played a part in its origins. We got that. And the vice chair of the ACIP, Dr. Robert Malone, later in the show. But first, a new report claiming that sanctuary cities refused nearly 18,000 detainers last year, letting criminal illegal aliens back onto our streets. Democrats, that's them. We got Congressman Jim Jordan on that next.
Donald Trump's second presidency is changing America. Now you need to watch Rob Schmitt tonight on President Trump's next big move. Then tune into Rob Finnerty taking on Trump's critics. President Trump says he watches Newsmax. You should too. Download our Newsmax app to watch us anytime, anywhere. Millions are making the switch to Newsmax. Be one.
Kibble. It's been the standard for decades, and it's failing our dogs. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. It's gently air-dried, locking in the nutrients and the flavor dogs go wild for. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. So Nobella changed that.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation.
I decided to give Sonobello a try. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is our breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative that sculpts, tightens, and lifts your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside. And Lift EX is exclusively available at Sonobello. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever. Call to book your free consultation today.
Total Beats, America's best-selling Beats brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews today.
Power of disease.
Chicks and fleas, external word.
15 million dogs and counting know Simparica Trio offers triple protection against heartworm disease, ticks and fleas, and intestinal worms, all with 1 monthly chew. This drug class has been associated with neurologic side effects, including seizures. Use with caution in dogs with or without a history of these disorders. Don't just protect, triple protect.
Look, I said last night, this is not something I'm letting go. The $18 million congressional slush fund. I want to list the reports and the materials, all the allegations. I want to see all of it. But the House voted to hide or at least postpone it, and their own misconduct from the American people are being sent to the House Ethics Committee and see what's going to go on there. The same committee run by this guy we told you about last night, who was sued for abusing his position and assaulting women, and he got a DUI by running his car into someone's house. Congresswoman Nancy Mace said it perfectly. Both parties united to one cause, protecting themselves. This is the two-tiered system of justice in plain sight. One standard for the rich and powerful and the politically connected, and everyone else gets theirs. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, sir, I got to ask you real quick. You voted to send this to the Ethics Committee last night. Do you think we're going to ever see the lights of day on this?
No, I do. You just want to do it in the right way. You want to protect victims. It's same with the whole Epstein thing. You want that. You want the bad guys. You want their information out there. You want to hold people accountable, but you want to protect people. And there's a way you do that that is consistent with the rule of law, consistent with rules, consistent with protecting people. So that's what this was at. You send it to the committee with House rules. House counsel will weigh in on this, but there's a right way to do it because, as you know, take the Epstein issue, there were people whose names were made public who shouldn't have been, who didn't do a darn thing wrong, or they may have been victims, and that's the key way to do this. But yeah, people done wrong. That there's no problem making sure you know about that, and they're held accountable.
You're committed to making sure that we find these names, sir?
Yeah, I think that is exactly what should happen on all these issues. Bad people should be held accountable. Innocent people should be protected, and that's why we have rules all throughout our system, particularly the justice, not just Congress, of course, but the justice system, the grand jury, the way that grand jury material is handed. There's rules that have been built up over the 250 years of this great country that are there to protect innocent people and people who did not engage in crimes and did not do harmful things. That's why you have the rules you do.
All right. I want to get your take on this. Now, you voted in favor of this in the past, but this is Mike Lee over in the Senate now introducing National Constitutional Carry Act. Obviously, this has passed the House, I think twice, actually.
Yeah.
Do you see it passing? And when it gets to you guys, do we pass it there in the House?
Well, we got to get here first. I mean, it's tough to get anything through the United States Senate, as you know. We have already passed concealed carry legislation, not constitutional carry, but concealed carry reciprocity. So if you get a concealed carry license in one state, you can also protect yourself, your family, your property in another state. So we believe in protecting the Second Amendment. I always tell people the Second Amendment's right next to the first for a reason. It's pretty darn important. So. Yeah, we support that, but we've already passed in the House in our committee before the concealed carry reciprocity. Yeah. But we haven't dealt with constitutional carry, but I support it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, look, we're trying to get around places like New York, where I am now, where I jump through hoops to get my permit, California, places like that. House Judiciary Committee hearing with Kristi Noem earlier in the week. You guys found that in 2025, sanctuary cities refused to honor 17,864 detainers. That is almost 18,000 illegals with criminal records that were arrested, just let back out on the street without even trying to deport them.
Not going to honor the detainer. Now remember, they already committed a crime when they entered or already violated the law when they entered the country illegally. So they're here illegally. Maybe have a final order of removal from the immigration courts, and also then have been charged with some other crime, and they're sitting in a jail or detention center, and ICE sends a detainer. And all the detainer is real simple. It says, hey, if you're going to let this individual out, give us a heads up. And 17,864 times, they either just release the guy to the street, or they've told ICE, we will not give you a heads up. And so many times, those guys go out and commit crimes. And here's the kicker. That is going on in roughly a third of the country. 18 cities, 11 states, 3 counties, and the District of Columbia all have this stupid, literally stupid sanctuary jurisdiction policy in place.
Yeah, and this is coming on the backs of a Supreme Court win for President Trump and Republican immigration policies, where they said, hey, you have to defer. You can't, federal judges just can't overturn whatever they want. They have to defer to immigration judges. But Congressman Jim Jordan, we appreciate you fighting on that one, sir.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, another major topic of the day, the economy. U.S. payrolls unexpectedly fell by 92,000 in the month of February. The unemployment rate ticked up just a little bit to 4.4, but wages rose more than expected, with an average hourly increase of earnings of 0.4% for the month and 3.8% from a year ago, way outpacing inflation, by the way, both 0.1 percentage points above forecast. However, Peter Navarro says that there's a larger story to these headlines. February's report is distorted by temporary factors like the unseasonably cold weather disrupting construction and transportation and other outdoor jobs. Look, having personal experience in the construction management industry, I can tell you when a union construction project is halted because, people held for jobs or weather, rain, or in this case, cold, they apply for unemployment even for a week at a time. So there's also a large stake in healthcare strikes in California and Hawaii, temporarily removing tens of thousands of workers from payrolls, blue states being affected by blue policies. And another major factor here is President Trump is successfully stopping millions of illegals from entering the labor force. Business and market analyst Seth Denson. All right, Seth, like a lot of factors here, and they're trying to spin it on both sides of the aisle.
Another big week of data, Carl. I feel like we're just in this continuous data dump that we have to analyze. And here's the reality in the market, though. I think market likes or doesn't like bad news about as much as it doesn't like no news or guessing. And there's a lot of guessing going right now. So I think that the key headline that I pulled out of this labor report, yeah, it might feel like things are cooling, but wages are growing year over year, 3.8%. That's actually a big number when you start to break it down. You think about where the economy is. And I think what we're seeing is businesses are becoming more selective. Yes, we had a hot labor market for a while. It's now a selective labor market. Employers, businesses, they're looking at where to make sure they're wrapping in margin versus just growth.
And that's the other thing. Morgan Stanley is now, I mean, we saw Square or Cube, whatever it is now, Jack Dorsey's thing, that was, he fired 30% of his workforce, or a quarter of his workforce, went up 20% in value. Morgan Stanley just laid off 3% of its workforce, roughly 2,500 employees, despite record profits for the year. And now New York State is proposing a law that would require essentially businesses to declare and warn their worker adjustment, refrainment, and notifications. It would be notices if AI was a factor in any job loss, because according to the State Department of Labor, major companies who've been, filed these things, they wouldn't be able to fire people anymore based on AI replacement, which is stupid.
Yeah, Carl, stopping AI expansion in the labor force is like stopping electricity expansion in benefit of candle makers. It just won't work. And by the way, this would just be another reason why more companies would leave the state of New York. AI is here. We warned you about it. Here's the reality. We need to start thinking about it, recognize the importance that skilled labor still plays in the market, and adjust the labor force to what AI will bring. That's what the Trump administration seems to be pushing for.
The other thing, Seth, is you've got companies over the last 4 years under Biden where the unions bullied places like UPS and Boeing and all these other ones for huge 30% wage increases, and now they have to make cuts under Trump.
Well, that's right. And as you look at specifically the financial sector, Carl, we were looking at just 6 months ago, for every 1 point of organic growth these companies saw, that was effectively one full turn in valuation. That means the company was worth 1 times even more.
Yeah.
Today, that's 1/10. So it really is about margin management. That's what companies are focused on right now.
Well, it's going to be interesting to follow. Seth Denson, we'll have you back to talk about it.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, coming up, newly declassified documents, and I've been on this for a while, I've been beating the drum on it, raising explosive questions about the origins of Lyme disease and whether U.S. military bioweapons program may have played a role in this. Vice Chair of the ACIP, Dr. Robert Malone, joins me next live.
They are the princes of the kingdom: Charles, Andrew, William, Harry, and young George. When Queen Elizabeth departs, the royal family will change forever. Go behind their gates and watch Princes of the Palace on Newsmax.
48% of Americans aren't getting enough magnesium, which is essential for nerve, bone, and muscle health. I recommend Cunol High Absorption Magnesium Glycinate. It's gentle on the stomach and helps you get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Muscle cramps were keeping me up at night, so then I tried Slowmag, the magnesium plus calcium supplement that helps relax tense muscles so I can rest comfortably. And Slowmag tablets have a slow-release formula that's gentle on my stomach. That's why I use Slowmag.
What can $34 get you these days? It could send you to your ancestral village and give you a taste of your heritage passed down through the generations. That's a big adventure for a small price.
Hello, I'm Franklin Graham. Jesus said, come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. Maybe you've been burdened by the sins of your life and the mistakes, and you just would love to have rest for your soul. Well, I want you to know that God loves you. He made you. He created you. And he sent his son, Jesus Christ, from heaven to this earth to take your sins. That's right. He took your sins to the cross. He died and shed his blood on a cross. And he was buried. But on the third day, God raised him to life. And if we are willing to repent, turn from our sins, tell God that we're sorry, and by faith, believe on Jesus Christ, and invite Him to come into our hearts, to take control of our life, God will forgive us and cleanse us. And you can have a new life, a new beginning, starting today, right now. Invite Him to come into your heart. God bless you.
Get new floors during Empire Today's gigantic 75% off sale. That's carpet, hardwood, tile, and vinyl. 75% off. Schedule now.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today, most people don't know where their meat is sourced. For generations, people had access to quality local meats from American farms and ranches.
At Good Ranchers, we're reviving that tradition by partnering with ranchers and farmers.
No imports. Just 100% American-born, raised, and harvested meat delivered directly to you.
We select only the finest cuts that we would feed our family.
Visit goodranchers.com and discover American meat delivered.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
A better heart health supplement. That's what we all want. That's why for 8 years now, I've relied on this heart powder. It's Super Beets, and I swear by it.
Super Beets is the original #1 selling beet brand for healthy blood pressure support. The only cardiologist-recommended beet brand that's also trusted by over 40 national championship-winning pro and college sports teams for cardio-powered energy.
For cardio results you can feel, the only brand I trust is Super Beets.
Try Super Beets today at human.com.
Oh, people called me crazy for years about this kind of stuff. Government secrecy, overreach, long been red flags. They've been eroding trust in institutions that should be protecting us. But this previous conspiracy theory is now becoming oddly true. Declassified documents suggesting a chilling link between America's Cold War-era bioweapon experiments and the Lyme disease outbreak that exploded in the 70s. Stay with me here, you are not crazy. During the Cold War, the United States, and this is all from declassified documents, ran a large, highly secretive bioweapons program aimed at preparing for the potential of biological warfare. When they say they're preparing for it, they're doing something. Scientists studied a wide range of pathogens and delivery methods, including insects that could spread disease. I mean, like, what could go wrong with that? Among the ideas at the time were ticks. Mosquitoes, other vectors that could potentially carry infections to enemy populations. And here's where it gets even more interesting. According to historical records cited by the researchers, the U.S. military once released hundreds of thousands of ticks, some reportedly used in radiation exposure experiments totaling more than 282,000 insects as part of a testing program during the Cold War. There is a movie that started like this, and it ended badly. This is real, though, folks. Another example, often cited by researchers, involves covert CIA operations in the 60s, when reports suggested the agency experimented with insects and agricultural pests as potential weapons against Cuba. The idea was simple: use infected insects or ticks to spread disease and damage enemy populations or their food supplies. I guess, I don't know, people in the CIA never heard of wind. Cuba's only like 90 miles away, so these things could get here. There were a few of these, what sometimes called the Swiss agent cover-up. Then there was Project 112, a little-known Pentagon program launched in the 60s. And perhaps the most intriguing, the Plum Island Animal Disease Center. This was a secretive government research facility located just off the coast of Long Island, just across the water from a town called Lyme, Connecticut, where doctors in the 70s first began identifying a mysterious illness that would later become known as Lyme disease. Now, Lyme disease is the most common vector-borne illness in the United States. It affects hundreds of thousands of Americans each year. Now, members of Congress have previously pushed for federal investigators to review military research conducted between 1945 and 1975 to determine whether ticks were ever infected with these pathogens as part of some government experiments. But there's been no definitive public conclusion yet. Surprise. To be clear, many scientists dispute the idea of Lyme disease originating in a lab, saying the bacteria responsible for the illness is naturally in wildlife, just like the Wuhan bat, right? Yeah? Unbelievable. You're telling me that a disease that originated off the coast of Lyme, Connecticut, was just coincidentally naturally occurring? And sure, whatever. ACIP Vice Chair Dr. Robert Malone, sir, you, among other things, you invented the mRNA. You've done a lot of things. Now, this is oddly becoming true.
Yeah, so the context here is a crack team under Secretary Rubio is working on advancing the president's agenda to apply artificial intelligence as a tool for monitoring compliance with the Biowarfare Convention. And as part of that, I have been asked to serve at the UN in the committee that is tasked with investigating reports of chemical or biologic weapons infractions. And I've been working on developing an AI system, a layered AI system, to evaluate potential risks, hopefully in the future. And none of this is new information. This is information that was nicely pulled together and analyzed by this multi-layered system that I've developed.
Yeah.
But it was available. It's covered in the book Bitten. It's covered in Bobby's book about the Wuhan lab leak cover-up. But as you correctly note, this is a major thrust area now for HHS. The secretary is working hard to try to get his colleagues over in war, Pete, to declassify these various documents. And what was considered to be a conspiracy theory is very much validated by the analysis performed, which suggests that there's at least a 45% probability that the severity of Lyme disease as it spread along the eastern seaboard was enhanced through these military activities. You mentioned the radioactive ticks. These are Lone Star ticks that weren't previously in this area, but when they were deployed as a part of an assessment of the ability of ticks to spread, now we have Lone Star ticks that are north of the Mason-Dixon line. That didn't exist prior to this deployment.
Wow. And by deployment, you mean like them actually, doing these experiments? I mean,
I'll put it simply: dropping Lone Star ticks that were radioactive into Virginia.
Yeah, and now people are getting allergies to red meat. I mean, this is like insane to me. What is the recourse? Are we ever going to find out who was responsible? Are they dead? Is it like what happens now?
So, as you noted in your lead-in, all this occurred back before the Nixon Biowarfare Convention activities. And yeah, I'm aware. I used to be involved in held secret classification in working in this area. There was an enormous amount of money spent on developing biowarfare agents back in the day. Some argue more than we spent on thermonuclear warfare.
Wow.
This was a major area of focus for the U.S. government, and there's evidence of deployment against, for instance, you mentioned the arthropods and Cuba. There is informal reports that C-130s were dropping infected ticks over Cuban sugarcane fields.
This is so crazy to me, but where there is money, there is cattywampus afoot with this government. Dr. Robert Malone, we appreciate you joining us on this, sir.
Thanks a lot for having me on, Carl.
Always
Keep
pleasure.
having fun.
I will. All right. I'm always having fun when we're exposing the government corruption. Coming up, we saw it ourselves at the State of the Union. Democrats, basically the party of illegal aliens and criminals. More in our Culture Clash.
I'm John Glasgow, and whether the story is right here in New York City in a courthouse or at the border wall in Arizona, we're going to be boots on the ground to bring you all the facts to make sure that you get the story straight, because that's what's important to us right here at Newsmax.
No way this all fits.
Watch me.
Oh, we're watching, Gary. They're right. We need weather tech.
I thought they only make floor liners and cargo liners.
Really, Gary? Really, Gary? Who do you think made the seat protector, side window deflectors, no-drill mud flaps?
And the cup foam.
And I just ordered WeatherTech's newest products. Ta-da!
Hitch Basket makes for easy loading of heavy and bulky gear and increased storage capacity with a roof basket up top. Buy American at WT.com.
WeatherTech for the win.
You moved in. You nested.
Hey, what are you doing?
You partied. You cuddled. You made egg rolls. You slept in. Or tried to. And you kept growing. Now it's time for the next chapter. With Open Door, get an all-cash offer for your home in 24 hours. Because saying goodbye should be the hardest part. Move into your future with Open Door.
Need blood pressure support? Total Beets contain a patented key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. That's why Total Beets is the #1 best-selling beets brand in America. Take control of your health with Total Beets. Search Amazon now for Total Beets.
Pump up the volume. Go ahead. Crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing, for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Wow. Lo and behold.
I know that walk anywhere.
Welcome to the set of Tulsa. It's a privilege to see you here.
Oh, my God. If any first responder or Gold Star widow has someone die in the line of duty and they leave a young family behind, we pay every mortgage off in America.
Well, it's such a humane thing to do, to take care of the people that are taking care of us.
Exactly.
I'm Sylvester Stallone. Please donate $11 a month at T2T.org.
A woman in Fairfax, Virginia, brutally murdered by an illegal alien and was completely avoidable, by the way. This illegal had 30 prior arrests, and still Virginia authorities still refuse to cooperate with ICE. But it gets even worse. The Fairfax police sounded the alarm to the county, the prosecutor over there, and in writing, illegal criminal, in November. He had an extensive criminal history. He has stabbed multiple people, sexually assaulted at least one woman, and committed numerous other criminal offenses. Furthermore, his behavior appears to be escalating and becoming more violent and explosive. And yet, there he is. Daily Caller reporter Ashley Brasfield, senior research analyst for the Media Research Center, Bill D'Agostino. Ashley, why can't we just put these people in jail?
I'm asking the same question, but you have to look at Virginia and who's the top law enforcement officer in the state currently. That would be Jay Jones, the attorney general. And we know his history from back in the election. Remember, he's the one that wanted to put a bullet in the Republican House Speaker in Virginia's head.
Ooh,
That's
yeah.
the standard they have in Virginia. So, I feel bad for Fairfax County Police who have to send this email to basically cover for themselves in this instance. I mean, this guy had multiple priors, and if you read the email, they talk about his extensive criminal history that's listed. And of course, none of the prosecutors took note of it. And, the police luckily did what they could in this scenario. But, it's the top state law enforcement people like the state prosecutors that are not doing their jobs, Carl.
At all. All right, and not the first time Fairfax County prosecutor has ignored a crime, though. Back in 2022, the same officer had a man who was facing life in prison for sexual assault against a minor walk out with a misdemeanor charge after they missed an evidentiary deadline. I mean, you got to bring the stuff to court, Bill.
Yeah, no, you don't actually if you don't want to prosecute the guy to begin with. The minor was an 11-year-old boy, by the way. He sexually assaulted an 11-year-old boy. So the guy in this story actually had about 30 prior arrests, mostly for like violent crimes, all of which were either dropped or not prosecuted or reduced, all by the same prosecutor, right? I mean, at a certain point, it just has to be understood that this is policy, right? Like it's not a coincidence that this is happening. It's not like the prosecutor keeps accidentally forgetting to charge people. I mean, that's his excuse in this case. But what are the odds, right? When he's dropped like charges against the same guy 30 other times. And so it just needs to be understood. They want these criminals let loose to terrorize people on the street. That is the policy.
Yeah, and they'll forget to introduce evidence for it. Ashley, real quick, criminals, though, the reason they're getting away is because we have judges like this. Look at this. Self-proclaimed jail and prison abolitionist just won a primary race for a district court judge in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was also arrested 3 times during the 2020 George Floyd protests. It's like, good luck, Charlotte.
You can't make this stuff up. And in Mecklenburg County, which is right outside of Charlotte, they have a sheriff that also has a huge corruption scandal that also just got reelected on Tuesday night. It's insane. They have a huge problem. And it's not places just like D.C. and New York City. I mean, North Carolina is a purple state. A lot of Republicans live there, but it is a blue city is what Charlotte is. You have to address the policies within these cities. I've spoken to, Rep. Mark Harris, who represents the area, that's a Republican, and he's taken steps to do this. They've had, hearings and had a lot of the victims' families come and speak, but nothing's being done.
Yeah, Bill, real quick, they're bringing illegals to the State of the Union. Bill?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's remarkable, but it also kind of tracks, right? Because you got to bring your constituents, right? You have to bring your most important constituents to represent you. And so I'm, was anybody actually surprised, right? Like when you really think about it, it kind of makes sense. What are they going to do? Bring an American?
Oh, yeah. I mean, God forbid. Well, whatever. Anyway.
The governor invited him to the mansion. So, yeah, obviously.
It's all a clown show. It's not real things. It's stupid. Ashley, Bill, have a great weekend.
Thanks
a lot.
All right, coming up, the nonprofit we introduced to you last month has chosen the vet who I'll be hunting with in a couple weeks down in Texas. That's next.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all 3 main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
To a hacker, your tax return isn't just paperwork, it's a gold mine. Your social security number and bank data are their biggest payday of the year. Old antivirus software can't keep up. You need PCmatic. Our default deny technology blocks every single threat that hasn't been pre-approved. If we don't know it, we block it. Secure your return right now. Buy PCmatic antivirus and we will give you PCmatic VPN for free. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Visit PCmatic.com.
You're going to hear some words. Repeat those words.
Okay.
Yard.
Yard.
Day.
Day.
Hi, Mom. I can't wait for you to hear well again, so I won't have to scream to tell you that I love you. Now tell me if you can hear this. Hi, Mom.
Oh.
It's not just your hearing. For us, it's your life. That's why we created the Miracle Ear Way. Our superior expertise is backed by licensed professionals that take the time to get to know you and your needs. Book your free test. Call 1-800-498-7146. Your care is on us, from your first hearing test to free unlimited servicing, cleanings, and checkups. We offer solutions that transform hearing, like our nearly invisible design, custom made for comfort. Book your free test. Call 1-800-498-7146. Stay connected to your loved ones. Unlock our best deals of the year. Call 1-800-498-7146.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric that helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Hey, remember when we introduced you to that nonprofit that helps veterans get much-needed outdoor experiences, a cause obviously near and dear to my heart? Well, the nonprofit called Under One Flag takes veterans for outdoor experiences surrounded by other veterans. This coming at no expense to the veteran, and Under One Flag is made up of all volunteers to make sure that every dollar is spent to make the maximum impact. As we told you, the weekend of March 21st, we are looking for one lucky veteran to accompany me to the Rockin' DK Ranch in West Texas to go for a hunt. Well, we selected our veteran. Mike Burns is the co-founder and president of Under One Flag. Mike, we're going at the end of this month to Texas.
Brother, I am so fired up. I'm so fired up. You know, this opportunity was given to us by Dan and Kay Jupe, the owners of Rockin' DK Ranch. They stepped up and heard what we were doing. They want to be a part of it. They're God-fearing, red-blooded Americans who just love our country and understand what we're doing here at Under One Flag. So it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, no, it really is. And like, I'm just appreciative to be a part of this group and be able to, use this platform to help get us. Obviously, this is something near and dear to you. You lost your leg in Iraq.
Yeah, I did. And, I found a lot of therapy being outdoors. I was able to challenge myself mentally, physically, and just a lot of healing. And so that's a big push of what we do with Under One Flag is having this opportunity to get veterans and first responders out and do that same thing. There's something to be said about the healing power of being out in God's country.
No, there absolutely is. This is I actually had steaks already shipped out there. I think our guy Brian on the board has received them, so I'm anxious to eat some of those. Where do people go? Because look, I've contributed to this personally. Obviously, I'm making a point to go on this hunt and be a part of this. We're going to do many more of these. We've had over 1,000 submissions of people who want to do these hunts and participate. What's the website? Where do people go to find out more about it?
Yeah, so you want to go to our website, underoneflag.org. That's under the number one flag.org. Find out more about us. You can check us out on our social media as well. We're on all the platforms. Jump in if you have a tag you want to donate, if you have some property that we can come and camp or hunt or fish or ride horses or whatever it is, anything to get America's heroes outdoors and just start enjoying the benefit of being outdoors.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, it's like working in the city, getting outdoors is like my one piece of therapy. If I didn't have that, I don't know what I'd do. And I'm a lot better off than a lot of other veterans, unfortunately. So we want to help them wherever we can. Mike Burns, always a pleasure, my man. We love what's going on here.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate the opportunity. God bless. Stay safe.
We'll see you soon. Underoneflag.org, folks. We'd love to, maybe come up with you. You might be the next hunter. You never know. Submit on the website. Before we go, a piece of American cinema memorabilia up for grabs, and the price tag actually ain't that bad. Next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
So, here is a before of my stomach before Sono Bello, and this is after.
This year, don't just lose weight, lose stubborn fat and sagging extra skin permanently at Sono Bello.
I wanted the results of the tummy tuck, but not the downtime.
We've helped over 300,000 people transform.
Do you want that flat stomach? You go get that flat stomach.
Schedule your free, no-obligation consultation. Our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today. Call or go to sonobello.com right now.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year your loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Millions of Americans rely on a statin to reduce cholesterol, but statins can deplete CoQ10 levels. I recommend Cunol CoQ10 with 3 times better absorption and the #1 cardiologist recommended form. It helps replenish what statins deplete. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Right now, sirens are sounding from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. All across Israel, hundreds of missiles and drones from Iran are striking civilians in desperate need of food, life-saving mobile bomb shelters, and emergency supplies. Many families are trapped underground, unable to leave without risking their lives. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews has emergency teams working where the danger is greatest, but critical supplies are running out. Please respond with an emergency gift of $45 now. Your $45 will help provide a 1-week emergency food box and resupply trauma bags for first responders in the line of fire tonight. In this critical hour, Christians and Jews can stand shoulder to shoulder against the evil regime in Iran. But there is no time to delay. Give $45 now. Call the number on your screen, scan the QR code, and stand with Israel now.
This one goes better with the walls.
This is so much easier than the home improvement store.
There's the measurement fee, delivery fee, restocking fee.
And installation.
Oh, no. That's not my department.
With Empire's Home Floor Advantage, we have clear, all-inclusive pricing. No surprises. And installation is on your schedule.
Call or visit EmpireToday.com and get the Home Floor Advantage.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Alrighty then, as someone who was just 12 years old when Ace Ventura came out, When Nature Calls, 1995, this scene gets me every time.
The mother rhino is giving birth.
Jim Carrey, who may or may not be dead, according to all these recent reports, was like a comedian genius in this, acting like he was being born from the rhino's rear. You know what? You could actually have the same opportunity, Rob, because that mechanical rhino is up for public auction on March 25th. I mean, they had to rebuild the latex butt skin because he ripped it during the shooting of this stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, but right now it's on open bid. Last night it was $2,000. I think today it's up to $13,000, which is like a magnificent piece of cinematic history.
You're going to buy it, aren't you? You're going to buy it and you're going to put it up at that ranch.
It may.
I did buy it. That's why
I maybe did bid on it. My wife's from Turks and Caicos, so
yeah,
she doesn't know yet. But
that's a great movie.
It's so good,
and such a talented actor who sadly went woke and got so
all
strange.
messed up,
they all get messed up in Hollywood. I mean, that guy was so brilliant in the beginning.
They were ahead of times. Einstein and Finkel.
Good stuff.
Have a good weekend,
Carl. Have a good weekend. All right.